This video will contain spoilers. As per usual, I keep on forgetting to make the videos, so I'm just gonna pile a couple into one. I think it's only gonna be three, but I'll just have to do the three that I remember and then pause and take a break to see if I can remember. Anyway, Back to Black, universally negative ratings, directed by Sam Taylor Johnson. I watched it in the cinema. Harley Bird, which has the voice of Peppa Pig. Jack O'Connell. Yeah, I thought Jack O'Connell's gonna be the only name I recognised. Just like with Bob Marley, I knew some things with Amy Winehouse, I knew about her drug problem and all that, and that's the reason why she wrote Rehab. And I knew the song Back to Black, I just didn't know the name of it. I couldn't tell you any lyrics, but I knew like the instrumental and her sort of singing style. But the reason why I watch films about people that I didn't have an interest in prior to watching the film is it just seems like a really good story. Excuse the very long break. My dad came up, decided to get a bath or a shower for the first time in forever, and then did something else in the bedroom. I don't even know. So I forget where I was. I know that I didn't get far, if anywhere at all. I think I just got to the cast and talking about how, like with Bob Marley, didn't really know much. But now because of this, I do quite like it. I think this is the first Sam Taylor Johnson film I've seen. Like I've known who she is for a while because she's Aaron Taylor Johnson's wife, and there's a big age gap between them. But what I didn't know is that she is a director. I thought she was just a producer or something, and she done like 50 Shades of Grey. So, like, imagine doing fucking 50 Shades of Grey, and now doing this, and I quite like this. It's weird seeing Jack O'Connell. I think it's the first time I've seen Jack O'Connell in anything since I finished Skins 2 years ago. I know that he did like a couple things in America, but I either haven't watched them or watched them before I knew who he was. And he I don't know if like maybe they put makeup on him to make him look like this, but in the film he looks like a drug addict. Like he looks older than he is. And really the only other comment I have to make about him and his character is I find it quite funny that in the scene where he first meets Amy, he flirts with her by going, "Oh, there's a vision in my pint," because they were in a bar. "I see you getting very drunk, and then at the end of the night, getting a big, dirty, like fucking." It sounds like dirty talk. It sounds like he's going to talk about his dick, but he's talking about a kebab. And then she eventually got a fucking kebab. There's a scene or a couple of scenes where she says that her music is jazz, but it just isn't. I mean, yeah, it's heavily inspired by jazz, but I mean, there are heavy metal bands that are inspired by the Beatles, but the Beatles isn't heavy metal. And so, you know, my point is, just because your inspiration is one thing doesn't mean you are that thing. Like, you know, she's inspired by jazz, but she's not a jazz artist. She's more like pop. She's quite similar to Florence Welch. Um, it's been a couple days, so I can't think of what else there is to say. Because I don't want to talk about Amy herself too much, because this is a review of the film, not of her. And you know, it's been a couple days. I forgot a couple things that I wanted to say. There are actually like two things I can think of right now. There were a couple times where it was too loud. One of the times was her singing, which I get that she is like, she does do high notes and shit. And there was another one where I think it was like white noise, basically. This is like a sort of connotation of how distracted she is, or disorientated. But that was too loud. And there was also a bit that was too bright. Like just that one shot, but it was. I'm surprised I didn't have to put my hand across my eyes to block it, because it hurt. It hurt, honestly. So, great film. I really don't want to have to like. I don't want to try and force something based out of it, because I mean, with Bob Marley, you had that line of dialogue where he was like, I don't mean to compare it to Bob Marley so much, but it's the only film about a musical artist that has come out recently that I can think of. But what I was saying was, there was a line of dialogue in Bob Marley where I think he says something like, "There's not a single government in the world that was legally elected." I really need to hold on. Sorry about that. Massive reflux playing up. I took my tablet before I started recording this video, but I need to take them a couple days in a row for them to kick in, and I think I missed out on yesterday, so. So my only other option is take a drink, but I needed to piss. Also found out that noise, or what my dad was doing, was ironing, which he never does that, and even if he would, it would be downstairs, not upstairs. So like, what the fuck? I thought he was vaping, but I mean, he doesn't vape anymore. Like, he keeps on switching back and forth between cigarettes and vapes, and currently he's on cigarettes. But if I take pauses, it's because I need to take a drink. Like, my throat's killing me. So, you know, Bob Marley had that line where there's not a single legal government in the world. And there are a couple things that I can think of in this that are based, but excuse me, they're not as on the nose as Bob Marley. So it does. I don't want to like try and get politics out of literally everything, but there are a couple things that happen in this that I want to mention. Number one, I've known this for a while, but it seems to be that when you become a celebrity, it like you just lose your right to privacy. At least that's what it feels like, because I mean, paparazzi are fucking everywhere ready to take photos of you. Like, now, since she's a singer, she has concerts and shit like that. Taking photos of concerts, yeah, of course. She is working, but I mean, she has a personal life. You know, it's personal to her. It's not public. So they should fuck off. And really, there's nothing you can do. Like, legally, nothing you can do because, you know, you can tell them to go away, but they won't. You can, like, try and force them to go away by saying, I don't consent to having my photo taken, but they don't give a shit. And they'll still continue. Really, the only option is assault. Like, to get them to fuck off, but, obviously, it's assault, it's illegal. So it's just more evidence that journalists are not human. But anyway, there was another thing, but I forget what it is now. Instead, I'll mention that when sometime during like halfway through the film, it almost seemed like it was about the end, and I was like, this does not feel complete. But then, there was another hour left. It just, something about it seemed like it was the end of the film. And another thing is that I thought that this was going to be very soft, that it wasn't going to touch on harsh subjects. And I thought, like, I don't mean to be like that kind of person where it was like, oh, if she were alive today, blah, blah, blah. But I feel like, if she were consulting on the production of this, I feel like she'd be like, don't back away from anything. Because I'm picking that up based on what she says in the film. Like, especially with Jack O'Connell, she's like, oh, I would never leave you for some fake person in Hollywood. I mean, I guess she is an artist, but whatever, just, a celebrity. He's just some guy. He fears that she's going to leave him for a celebrity when she gets, like, worldwide famous. But she says that, those people are fake because they got plastic surgery and shit like that, and just overall, they're not authentic. And she loves him because he is authentic. So I thought, based on that, like, if if she were consulted on this, she would want, like, all the disgusting things, like how messy her room is, like the vomit and shit like that. Don't tone it down. Like, make it, I don't want to say accurate, because, I mean, she died 13 years ago. So obviously, like, her room and shit like that, and all the vomit has been cleaned since then. But, say in an action film, if it's rated 13 and someone gets shot in the head, all you really see is just like a red hole on their head, and then they fall over, because they can't be much more violent than that, or else it'll be a 15. So she wouldn't want like a PG-13 where the vomit is minimal. You don't even see it. You just hear her throw up in a toilet, stuff like that. And I thought, like, if they would be like, if they were to push that to the limit, they would probably show her death, which they didn't. Which I'm not saying that it was a bad thing that they didn't do that, but it's something that I thought was going to happen. I can't think of what the other thing I was going to say that was based is, so I'm just going to move on. Oh, actually, I wasn't thinking this, even though it's the most obvious thing, but she didn't let anyone control her, which, very best, They wanted to sign her to, I think it's called, like, 19 Records, which is basically just, like, Spice Girls, Little Mix type shit. and that is just not her. Monkey Man, universally positive ratings, directed by Dev Patel. Produced by Jordan Peele. I watched it in the cinema. Starring Dev Patel, Charlotte Copley. They're probably the only names I recognize, and yes, they are the only names I recognize. To label this as an action film is a lie. It isn't. In a 2-hour film, there is maybe 20 minutes, 30 at most, of action. And it's just not enough to be really considered an action film. I get, action films shouldn't be 100% action. Like, that you need to sort of set up stakes and consequences. Like, John Wick wouldn't be anywhere near as good as it is if it was just him killing people. Like, starts with showing off how he just lost his wife. He's grieving about that. He has his dog, which helps, but then he gets killed, and he goes after people to kill his dog. If it was just him going after people to kill his dog without actually showing that that's the reason, the impact wouldn't be the same, because we don't know the stakes, and we don't know John. So, I wouldn't want it to be 100% action, but it should be, majority action. There is a bit, like, a quarter or a middle into the film, and then there's a couple bits towards the end, and that's about it. The rest of it is not bad, but it's just, it doesn't say what, it doesn't do what it says on the tin, For a directorial debut, the cinematography is quite good. It's just there is a lot of room for improvement. It's very French New Wave, but it's just, as I said with End of Watch, too French. Like, I get what he's trying to do. It just wasn't. It didn't hit the mark quite a few times. But that's forgivable because it's his first time directing. All the non-action stuff, it could have been shorter, I feel. There are a lot of things that were unnecessary, but I didn't mind the majority of it. But Jordan Peele producing this, it's his first non-black film, so he's diversifying his portfolio, even though he didn't direct this. But I mean, there's one white guy in the entire film, and even then he's South African. Now, I'm aware of the history of South Africa with apartheid and shit like that, but I mean, Charlotte Copley didn't contribute to it, and just because he's the fucking ringleader in like an underground boxing thing doesn't mean that he's racist. Like, why did he move to India out of all the places he could have went to? Well, if they didn't go into that, let's just not assume that it's race immediately, Jordan. Eh? I can't think of anything else to say. It's okay film. Good first attempt for Dev. Needs more action. Blue Lights. Universally positive ratings. BBC original series watched on BBC. I didn't know who Siam Brooke, I'm assuming that's how I pronounce her name, was before I seen this. But I found out that she's actually Euros Holmes from Sherlock. I found that quite weird. She's probably the only person that I would... Actually, Richard Dormer sounds familiar. I think he might have been in Game of Thrones. Yeah. His character was the best, and it's just a shame that he died in episode 5. By the way, I've seen the entire show. Like, I started on Monday. I was supposed to do the review on Monday, but I forgot, so... Yeah, because this is a Northern Irish drama, like it's filmed here, it's set here. There's not a lot of people I'm going to recognize. Um, this might be the second. Like when I think of shows set that are actually set here, I'm not talking about filmed here because Game of Thrones was filmed here. Dungeons and Dragons was filmed here. A couple other things were filmed here. Like Game of Thrones did for us what Lord of the Rings did for New Zealand, but not a lot of what's being filmed here is actually set here. And I think the first thing that was actually set here was Bloodlands. Then we got Hope Street, and now we have this. I haven't seen Hope Street yet. Bloodlands, I seen the first season a while back. I watched the first episode when it aired, and then I watched the rest of season 1 a bit later, and I haven't seen season 2 yet. But when it comes to this, it's fucking amazing. Like it's just our version of 19-2. They didn't copy anything from 19-2. Like there's no similar plot points. But it's just because of how it works, it basically is just 19-2. Like hard hitting drama. I'm glad that we're getting shows about patrol cops. Like you think cop show, you think like detective shows about detectives. Where it's murder happens, they investigate. By the end of the episode, it's solved. They move on. No actual like plot progression. Very few character development. Not that there's anything wrong with those shows. I fucking love those shows, but I'm glad that in the past like 15 years we're getting shows about patrol cops. We had the first one I can think of is Southland, which I wasn't a fan of that, but I'm gonna give it a second chance eventually. Then there's 19-2, the original, then 19-2, the reboot, then the Rookie, and now this. I think that's it. But just I'm glad that we're actually getting those because, I would have thought that a show about a detective is more entertaining than a show about a patrol cop because patrol cop, really, what are you doing? You're just, oh, there's a person over there selling drugs. Hey, freeze! You're under arrest. Put him in jail. Go back on patrol. There's someone else selling drugs. It would just be very boring. But no, like every show I've mentioned made it work, and it was fucking amazing. Well, Southland, you know what I said. Oh, and the Watch as well. I forgot to mention that. I didn't like Southland, but it was successful. Like it was very popular. It got good ratings. So it's just surprising to me. And now we have our own one. Like we've contributed. It is weird hearing so many Northern Irish accents. Like you don't hear that much in American shows. It's more than I would have thought because there's Sons of Anarchy, Suspicion, although his accent that is shit. Season 3 of Quantico, and that's about it, really. Hellboy 2, I think. Where it's just like a character, maybe two, if they show that character's family. So it is weird to have like full drama. I get that, because I've seen Bloodlands, it's not the first time for me, but it's just Bloodlands for me was a couple of years ago, so I remember general plot points, but I don't really remember it. So, hard hitting drama. You think, no way this could get better, but then it does. It's just a shame I'm gonna have to wait a year for season 3.